Not like that. Welcome back to another episode of the NFL Cymru Podcast with myself, Dyfed Cynan in the south, Guto Williams in the north. Early St David's Day. We're, only 2.5 hours short of St David's Day. Diwrnod Dewi, as we say here in Welsh. Probably one of the best days of the whole calendar. Guto, don't you agree?
Yes, 100%. Happy St. David's Day to everyone who's celebrating, who's watching. I hope you all have a great day.
Yeah, amazing. Very important for us, the Welsh. Obviously, a lot of traditions. My son will definitely be having his first St David's Day tomorrow. We've already got him an outfit. So we'll see what the day brings. But yeah, no rugby tomorrow, Guto, which is kind of strange. St David's Day obviously doesn't fall on a Saturday very often, and you'd picture a Welsh St David's Day with Wales playing rugby, but it's a break in the Six Nations, so we're going to have to talk about NFL. What a shame.
It's a better alternative, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Just eat a bunch of Welsh cakes all day. So
yes. Gosh, for those of you who haven't had a Welsh cake, you haven't lived, honestly. They're absolutely the picker a man, as we say here in Welsh. Wonderful. Anyway, now then, I don't know about you, Gitta, but I've sensed in the last couple of days, anyway, the NFL world, as per se, has been quite quiet for the last couple of weeks since the Super Bowl, but I've sensed a shift in the last couple of days. We've had some trade talks, we've had some trade requests. We're going to talk about a team who apparently is unwilling to trade one of their stars. Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. We'll get into that very, very shortly. And then that's what we're going to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about top free agents to look out for, because we're nearing the beginning of free agency. Let's be honest. We are just over with less than 10 days from officially the beginning of free agency, and we're already having some whispers, and some people have actually re-signed with their current team. Gito, shall we start off with the breaking news that came a couple of hours ago? Matthew Stafford is in fact staying with the Rams in LA.
Yeah, so it's been quite a few weeks since the Super Bowl. We broke the news. We didn't break the news, but we were one of the first to break the podcast news about Louis Rees-Zammit going back to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But there's not been a whole lot of movement. We know 1-2 players that will be leaving their franchises. But the big news this week is that the LA Rams have decided that they are going to keep Matthew Stafford. It was only reported maybe 24, 48 hours ago that the LA Rams gave permission to Stafford and his team to go speak to other teams, one of them being the Las Vegas Raiders. But however, not a whole lot of movement happened in those 24 hours. He is staying in LA.
Yeah. Another team apparently that he held talks with were the New York Giants, which makes sense because they're high in the draft. Definitely looking for a quarterback, and ultimately have an offensive mind as a head coach in Brian Dable as well. He worked wonders with Josh Allen before he took the Giants job. Potentially that could have been a good landing spot for him. Again, I think we talked during today. We were texting back and forth, and I said, I've heard from various sources that apparently Tom Brady was trying to court Matthew Stafford. Apparently, they just landed in the same holiday destination, and they were caught having some discussions. But I think it made sense for Matthew Stafford, to stay in the Rams. I mean, to be fair, you're going to two very, very poor teams at the moment. And what are the chances that you're going to have within the next couple of seasons to ultimately, even get to the playoffs, if not, not even talking about getting to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, exactly. Matthew Stafford, we ranked it last week. He's a top 10 quarterback. He wants to play for the top team. He's Neil, he's over 30. I think he's like 31 or 32. So I don't think he's at the rebuilding stage of his career. He wants to be a QB1 for a very top team. Sources saying as well that Stafford ended up taking less money, staying with the LA Rams that he would if he ended up moving elsewhere. So, like you said, the Raiders and Giants, they must have offered him some big money, but he's taking less just to stay in LA. Talking about the Raiders for a minute, it's a bit of a messy franchise at the moment. They're not in a great place at all. They're low in the draft. Well, they're number 6 in the draft, but they've got a massive rebuild going on. They've got on top as well, obviously. So, but it's going to take them a few years to consider themselves being a top franchise and maybe consider doing the playoffs.
Yeah. I should imagine that the Giants and the Raiders are probably definitely in the top 10, if not the top 5 of teams that have the most cap space as well. So they're going to have plenty of money to play with. And especially if the Raiders do decide to go in, like you said, blow everything up and go into a full rebuild mode, getting rid of stars like Max Crosby, who, again, that's been rumoured that he might be on the trading block as well. They signed a former Dolphin last summer. They gave him a lot of money, a defensive tackle called Christian Wilkins. I think he's earning up to 22 million a year. So they do like to spend. They don't tend to spend. The Raiders don't tend to spend on a quarterback. And they did ultimately they didn't. They decided against paying Josh Jacobs as well. That's why he left, and that's why he now is in Green Bay. Devontae Adams, they paid him a lot of money. That kind of blew up in their face. They're probably still dealing with the aftermath of that. So surely the Raiders are going to be one of the top teams in the top 5 or the top 10 looking for a quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumours that they will be shopping for a quarterback. They've got at the moment Desmond Ridder, Gardner Minshew. They're not quarterbacks. I mean, no disrespect, Aiden O'Connell. They're not quarterbacks that are going to take it to the playoffs. No. They're really not. So they will 100% be shopping for a quarterback. Rumours has it that they might give Aaron Rodgers a call. Who knows? We'll definitely see a new quarterback in Las Vegas before the start of the new season, 100%. Even if that's drafted or if it's there's one or two quarterbacks in the free agency that I want to talk about later on. But
okay,
it's not a good landing spot for Matthew Stafford. I'm actually quite glad that he's staying in the with the Rams team.
Oh, me too. But that's a good point, actually. They could potentially get Aaron Rodgers on a 1-year deal, draft a quarterback, and allow him to redshirt a year, which means he won't play in a regular season game. He's basically just learning the craft behind someone like Aaron Rodgers. I just don't know how he's going to affect the dynamic around the team. I've just heard absolute nightmare stories about Aaron Rodgers affecting, well, like I said in a previous podcast, within the first 3 months, he got his head coach and his GM fired, on his second year. After being out with a torn Achilles in his first year. So the signs aren't really good for Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure he will land somewhere. But like I said, maybe even if he plays half a season and maybe, say if they do draft someone like Shedeur Sanders, who is dropping in the draft apparently, Guto. Cam Ward seems to be the number 1 QB in the draft. I completely agree with that. I ultimately think Cam Ward is the better thrower. Shedeur is more of an organization changer. He definitely sets the mood. He's a big character like his dad, Deion Sanders. But apparently he's dropping and he might even fall out of the top 10. That's what I've heard lately anyway, which is interesting.
It is. Yeah, it's really interesting. Cam Ward, I've heard some rumours the New York Giants are very interested in Cam Ward. They're currently third in the draft. They've got Cleveland at number 2 and Tennessee number 1. Cleveland will be looking for a new quarterback, I believe, as well. There's rumours that they won't be drafting quarterback in the first round, though, which is interesting. But Cam Ward, for some reason, for me, Cam Ward and New York Giant is a good fit. And you've got Sanders as the second quarterback, but like you said, he is dropping. But that's what the combine is about, which is happening this week. So obviously, we mentioned in the last episode of Combine is where college players go in to show their skills, introduce themselves to different teams. So there might be something going on for him to be dropping down a few levels, and obviously Cam Ward is impressing quite a few teams, especially in the draft board.
Gitter, would it surprise you if Tennessee at number 1 takes a quarterback? Because obviously they drafted Will Levis, not a first round quarterback. Clearly his experiment hasn't gone that well over the last couple of years. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at all if either they would draft a quarterback or they would trade their number 1 pick and maybe slide down to, say, 3rd, 4th or 5th and maybe grab a first round pick on top of that as well. So Tennessee might be in for a quarterback as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Looking at their 2 quarterbacks at the moment, like you said, Will Levis, Mason Rudolph. It's only 2 that's registered at the moment at this moment in time. So
it's not great, is it?
No, it's not. They've had a very poor season. Hence why they're first in the draft. But then again, I've seen a couple of mock drafts from the other people, and they might be going for a defensive player. There a couple of names that's been popping up is Abdul Carter of Penn State. So he's quite an interesting one. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. There's obviously a good month before the draft starts, so a lot can actually happen. They got free agency before that. They can shop and see. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up with it.
Gitter, on Abdul Carter, by the way, the defensive end from Penn State. Yes. Apparently he's dropping as well because he potentially might have to have surgery on his foot. He might have to have screws inserted in his foot, which means, well, he'll either perform in the combine and then have surgery, so he can actually prove to the teams, I have the goods when I'm 100%, healthy, and then have surgery. But honestly, there are talks of him literally dropping down out of the top 10 as well, because a lot of teams might be fearful. Apparently it's going to be a pretty big procedure that might potentially put him out for a whole season, if not at least 6 months, which means he loses training camp. He won't be ready for the beginning of the season. So that's another name to look out for, a name that's falling in the draft as well. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's a shame that's happening to him. Obviously, with the draft just around the corner. Great timing as well. So yeah, we've got a good few weeks coming up with free agency and the draft, down to the draft. I think you and I will have to do our own mock draft before
100%.
the actual.
Yeah.
Doing.
Definitely. But to be honest with you, the draft, obviously free agency changes what you target in the draft, because obviously you aim to kind of target as many free agents as you can during free agency. If you have an eye on a particular draft pick, and if they're there, fantastic. Some teams like a certain player and they have them up on their board and they're ranked 1 to 100 or 1 to 300 or whatever it is. Or a team might take a different approach and they go best player option. So say if a team, if a star, like an injured maybe star, falls to them, or maybe there's kind of a run on a certain position, maybe if one cornerback is taken rather, and then other teams kind of almost like go into panic mode, and they say, oh well, I want a cornerback, I better take the next one available, and then a run starts, and you find a lot of this happens with the draft as well, where teams seem to kind of try to preempt, or they kind of go into panic mode, instead of drafting best player option BPA. But obviously, it all depends as well what you can grab in free agency, because ultimately you're going to be bidding for the best player there as well. Before we do go into the top 101 NFL free agents, by the way, Gito, you said that you wanted to talk about another quarterback before we do that.
Yeah, so another quarterback that I've seen make noise, if he is leaving his franchise or if he's staying. And I've been, to be fair, I've been quite a fan of this quarterback for a number of couple of years now. It didn't work out for him in Chicago. He moved to the Steelers. I'm talking about Justin Fields. 26 years of age. He started off the season with the Steelers 4-2 before Russell Wilson took over, because he was going to be QB1. His season started off with a bit of an injury. So, but there's some rumors that Justin Fields will be potentially heading out of the Steelers. So, to me, he's a skillful quarterback. He's got some good stats on him. I think when he left Chicago, the Bears fans, they were divided on keeping him or not before they drafted Caleb Williams. So, but with Justin Fields, if he could be a QB1 in a different team, like the Jets, for example. I think he'll fit in the Jets very well. If I'm not saying Jets is the perfect environment, but if he finds the right environment for him, I think he could really stride and go up at levels. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with Justin Fields. I don't think he should be benched as a QB2 for the rest of his career.
That's interesting. I mean, athletically, he's an athletic freak of a quarterback, I have to say. I've seen him run rings around some defenses, including the Dolphins, when he was still at Chicago. I actually, just before coming on the pod, I saw something that was up on NFL.com on Twitter, or X rather, that because Justin Fields and I believe Russell Wilson are free agents as well. So apparently now that Matthew Stafford has decided to stay in LA, maybe the Raiders are gonna target maybe both or either one of them. So I can definitely see Russell Wilson potentially going to the Raiders as well.
Yeah, so that will mean that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be shopping for a new quarterback as well.
Yeah.
So, which would make sense if they're losing two good quarterbacks. So, but there's a few. I don't think they'll draft a new quarterback. Obviously, they're too high up on the list. I believe the Steelers, they are currently in number 21 on the draft.
Oh, okay.
They finished the season 10-7. They lost the first round of the playoffs. So, if it does happen that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields both leaves, then they can shop on the free agency as well.
Yeah. Right. Shall we dive into these top 101 free agents? I've got the page up on NFL.com. This is the NFL 101 top 101 free agents, by the way. So obviously T. Higgins, wide receiver, Cincinnati Bengals, is the first one. Got over 1,000 yards receiving last year. He's only 26. So he's about to go into his prime. He'll definitely be looking for top money. He was franchise tagged last off season because ultimately the Bengals are not going to pay him because they have to pay the other wide receiver that they have. Their number one, let's be honest, their number one wide receiver, Jamar Chase, and apparently he's going to change the market as well. He is going to be the highest paid wide receiver. It was Tyreek Hill, then it was Justin Jefferson, and now definitely Jamar Chase, I think, decided to play another year with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think there was a shake of the hand last off season to say, if you hold off for a year, we'll make you the top paid wide receiver next year, which is now. That's definitely what's going to happen. So T Higgins is definitely going to leave. I've seen a lot of stories him potentially being targeted by New England. That definitely makes sense. We've talked about them having one of the biggest cap space, over 125 million, which is ridiculous. But he is ultimately a number one wide receiver for me. I thought he had a fantastic season last year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, T Higgins. To be fair, I had New England as his landing spot as well. To be honest with you, New England, they are currently number 4 on the draft, so they rebuild. They've got their quarterback, but they need weapons around the quarterback. The name has shifted me. I do apologize.
Drake May.
Drake May. I was thinking JJ McCarthy for some reason, but yeah, Drake May. So they need weapons around. But obviously they've got the big cap space; they can shop everywhere. So yeah, T Higgins, it could be a potential landing spot for T Higgins to go to the Patriots. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to talk about the number 2 free agent, which is offensive guard Trey Smith, currently of the Kansas City Chiefs. He, as of yesterday, was franchise tagged by the Chiefs. The franchise tag for 1 year for a guard is $23 million. Well, here we are. I've got it actually in front of me. $23.4 million for 2025, which is an astronomical amount of money for a guard. I'd understand if you'd pay that for a tackle. Usually, you'd see people in the range of, 15 million tops, maybe paying for a guard. So that, that clearly has fluctuated over the last couple of years. I know Robert Hunt, formerly of the Dolphins, went to the Carolina Panthers. Last year he got 20 million, and that seemed, top of the range. But now clearly it's going to be 23. I can't see. Kansas City are going to have to do a lot of work in order to create some cap space. They might have to go to individuals like Pat Mahomes, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, restructure their contracts in order to keep him. I definitely see other teams around the league bidding for him, and ultimately people will pay for a top guard because he's probably one of the top guards in the league, a Pro Bowler. But I just couldn't believe the amount. Obviously, contracts within the NFL, as the cap is rising every single year, we're just gonna see contracts going up and up and up and up. So maybe this in a couple of years will be an absolute bargain for a top player. Let's be honest.
It is. It was announced yesterday that it was franchise tagged, and the way I see the Chiefs doing business this season, they've got an amazing team. The cap space, you wonder if they can afford to keep everyone. Some players will leave. Obviously, it was announced that Travis Kelce will be staying for another season. So, they're still spending the big bucks on Travis Kelce.
Thank you for reminding me about Kelce, by the way. I was supposed to say that at the beginning, but thank you, Diane.
So yeah, they're still going to be spending the big bucks on Kelce, no doubt about it. So there's another few players. I'm a big fan of Nick Bolton, and I would expect the Chiefs to keep hold of Nick Bolton, to be honest with you. So they've got a lot of money to spend. There's a lot of money to spend on players that they've already got. Like we've mentioned in our draft, in our podcast that featured your dad, who is a massive Chiefs fan. They shop really well and they draft really. So, Chase Smith, even though he's number 2 on this ranking right now, he has been franchise tagged, so he will be staying with the Chiefs.
I'm just scrolling down quite well in the top. There's 2 Eagles in the top 5. Milton Williams, which is the defensive tackle, played exceptionally well in the Super Bowl. He was a part of that well, let's be honest, historical defensive line for the Eagles with Jalen Carter and Josh Sweat and others. So he's only 26. He's probably going to get paid. He's going to get a lot of money. I doubt that he's going to re-sign with the Eagles. I think he's going to be heading somewhere else. Zach Bourne is another one, linebacker. He became, a star overnight for the Eagles. I think they will probably be able to keep him because I don't think he'll demand that much money as a linebacker. He's, like I said, he's 28. He's a former special teams player as well, and now he's had an incredible season, Pro Bowler. The one that I want to point out is number 6. This is our first
Yep.
QB. You've got it. You've got
Yep.
him as well.
Yep, he's on my list. I think this is the biggest question mark on this list. Sam Darnold, quarterback of Vikings, an incredible season with Minnesota Vikings. Let's be honest. Who expected Sam Darnold? He's been everywhere. It hasn't worked out for him, but for last season, he's just exploded. He just came out of nowhere, and obviously they've got Justin Jefferson as the wide receiver, the best wide receiver in the league. So, but Sam Darnold, this is going to be a very interesting free agency for him. Is he going to leave the Vikings? Will he stay? Obviously, JJ McCarthy, they drafted him last season. They were number 3 in the draft last season. So, picking JJ really high, got injured pretty much straight away into training, missed the whole season. That's why Sam Darnold flourished through the season. But Sam Darnold wants to be QB1.
Yeah.
Very clear. Will the Vikings, and as well, if they do decide to keep him, they'll have to spend the big bucks on him as well because they've only signed him to that 1-year contract. So, but will the Vikings decide to pay the big bucks on him or let him leave and pick JJ McCarthy as the number 1? So, like the teams, like we mentioned before, shopping for quarterbacks, you got the Raiders, you got the Jets, and you've got Cleveland Browns, Tennessee Titans. The Colts may be looking for a new quarterback. We'll see. Obviously, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers, if one of Justin Fields, Russell Wilson are both leave. So I think Sam Darnold will be the biggest question mark in the next few weeks, mainly due to his position, to be honest with you, and due to the season.
Do you know what? Clearly, it was a prove-it year for Sam Darnold. This was the opportunity that he needed to revive his career, and clearly he took it. I genuinely think that Minnesota have drafted their quarterback for the future, which is JJ McCarthy. He looked very, very talented, like you said, in the off-season, unfortunately, before suffering a season-ending injury. I definitely think that they will stick with JJ, and I think Sam Darnold will walk. And it would not surprise me if Sam Darnold will be a Raider at the beginning of next season. I can just see Tom Brady, and I can see that franchise going after my best 2 fits for him would be, like you said, Pittsburgh or definitely Las Vegas.
Yeah. I've got Raiders written down. I've got Raiders, Jets, and Browns. He was actually drafted to the Jets, I believe. Yeah. So return to the Jets, maybe. But yeah, I've got Raiders on my list as well. But then thinking of the Steelers, I don't have it written down, but thinking of their situation, the Steelers would be a good landing spot for them as well. So
yeah, the only thing that you've got to be careful about Sam Darnold is ultimately which version of Sam Darnold are you going to get? Are you going to get the gunslinger 60, the way that he played for 16 games during the regular season, or are you going to have the version where he absolutely just fell apart in the last 2 games where Minnesota lost 2 blowouts? The last regular season game against the Lions, they lost by almost 35 points, I think, to the Lions. Then they got blown out in the first round of the playoffs as well. So yeah, it's hard. I think wherever he goes, he's going to need a good offensive line. He doesn't deal very well with blitzing and a lot of pressure as well, which is true about a lot of quarterbacks, but especially Sam Darnold as well. However, he can definitely throw the ball around. We all thought that Minnesota and Justin Jefferson were going to suffer because of JJ's injury, but he and Darnold, they thrived together. And ultimately, I think they won 12 or 13 games, Minnesota. Maybe it was 13, because I think the Lions won 14 at the end. So they had a miraculous season. But let's be honest, that was down to very, very good coaching. Kevin O'Connell won Coach of the Year, and Brian Flores was their DC as well, and he might potentially become a head coach in the next couple of years, whilst he was before with the Dolphins as well. So there we are, Sam Darnold, and I'm looking down here. There we go. We've got another Eagle, Josh Sweat at number 8. Chris Godwin, number 9. He's definitely going to go back to the Bucks. They have restructured rather his contract, so he will be going back. Chavarius Ward. I want to talk about Chavarius Ward. He's the first cornerback on the board. I'm going to talk a little bit selfishly about the Dolphins just for a second. The Dolphins are after a cornerback. They've got Jalen Ramsey, one of the best in the league, but they announced a couple of days ago that they released Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller had 2 pretty serious concussions and a knee injury towards the end of the season. So Chavarius Ward from the San Francisco 49ers, he's 29. By the way, Git, I'm not sure you heard a tragic story during the season. He's looking to leave San Francisco because ultimately he wants to move on because unfortunately he lost his child during the season, and I think he has a lot of just bad memories and he wants to have a fresh start somewhere else. So yeah, completely understand. But he's a Super Bowl winner with the Chiefs from 4 or 5 years ago. He's only 29, so he's still got 2 or 3 good years in his prime left. So I really hope, like I said, on a selfish part, that the Dolphins will target him in free agency. And ultimately, I don't think that he'll cost top end quarterback money as well. But you never know.
No, and he's only 29 years of age, so he's got a good few years left in him. So I think whoever picks him, like you said, he may be looking into moving on from his current location due to that tragic story. So I think whoever picks him, I think they've got a good player and a long-term player as well.
Yeah, you've already mentioned him, Guitar. Number 18, I'm looking here, linebacker Nick Bolton. He's only 25 of the Chiefs. What a talent! I mean, would you, if you were the Chiefs, would you rather keep Nick Bolton or Trey Smith?
Well, me personally, I'm a massive fan of Nick Bolton, so I think that's my answer straight away. He's a top player, and he's only 25 as well.
Yeah.
He's good. The Chiefs, like we mentioned earlier, they're gonna have to pay top money to keep some of the players who's likely to be moving on. Nick Bolton will be asking for a lot of money, I think. But I do think the Chiefs should keep hold of him. I don't think they need to get if they can. I don't think they need to get rid of their top players, but there's 1 or 2 areas that they can strengthen. But keeping Nick will be a big boost for them, I think.
Personally, I agree with you. I'd definitely pick Bolton over Trey Smith ultimately because, I mean, you're going to be if you're going to sign a guard for, like I said, for 23 million, that's going to take so much of your cap space. And I know that maybe you can give him a massive roster bonus and keep the cap down for the first couple of years and maybe put like a few dead years at the end. But yeah, I'd definitely take Nick Bolton every day of the year. So looking down here, Hassan Reddick, number 20, he's still a good player. He's 30 years old. Justin Fields, like we've already mentioned, number 21, he's only 26. Who else have we got here? Justin Reed, he's a really good safety. He's from the Chiefs as well. A lot of players on the defensive side for the Chiefs. They're going to be free agents as well. He's a veteran. He's 28. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs would kind of maybe give him a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. Again,
Yeah.
safety, he's not probably one of the top safeties, so he's not going to be paid, top dollar for that. I'd definitely see him going back to the Chiefs. Stephon Diggs, Gitter, number 30. What do you make of Stephon Diggs?
Yeah, this is the one I was going to bring up now. He's on my screen here. I've actually got him written down as well, Stephon Diggs. He's 31, a wide receiver. He missed 9 games last season due to an ACL tear. He's a former Bills. He's now of the Texans. I think I'd be surprised if he does leave because Tank Dell, who is a player for the Texans, he's got a long-term injury, so they'll need coverage. So to me, it would make sense, even though it says on here as well, but it would make sense if Stephon Diggs does decide to stay for the Houston. But I remember him play when he was with the Bills for a couple of years, and he was such a great quarterback, wide receiver. My apologies. He's such a great wide receiver. He's fast, but he's 31 years of age. But I think he'll be a good cover for that position for the Texans.
Yeah, I do, especially coming off an ACL injury, you have to be very careful. And is he ultimately past his best as well? I'd struggle to see him as a wide receiver 1. He'd be a very, very good piece as a wide receiver 2 or a 3 somewhere else. Like you said, I genuinely don't think the Texans will re-sign him. Even like you said, even with Tank Dell being injured for maybe half the season, I think water under the bridge. I think they'll be looking to move on. So he'll be out there. That's another wide receiver, up there with T. Higgins. He's going to be another one that's going to gather a lot of interest. Honourable mention, Gitter, number 35, Calais Campbell. Oh, I'm stealing all your thunder here.
Yeah, we've got good minds. It's good minds. That's what it is. So yeah, Calais Campbell, former Falcon, moved
Former
to
Dolphin.
He's a Dolphin now. 39 years of age and he's still going. He's just a tank, isn't he?
Oh,
and he performs every game. He's such a great player. He's a legend. Future Hall of Famer, maybe. Who knows?
100%. 100%.
For his position, yes, 100%. Yeah. If you, as a Dolphin fan, I was actually quite good to see him leave Atlanta Falcons when he did. You, as a Dolphins fan, would you rather keep him or let him go?
Oh my gosh, I would do everything I could to get him back, because undoubtedly he was our best acquisition of last
Yeah.
off season. He was signed a little bit later in the season, in the summer, early summer. I think he was way after the draft. But ultimately, Calais Campbell, he's a leader on and off the field.
Yeah.
The way that he takes care of his body, the fact that he was able, I think he got like 6 or 7 sacks. He was an absolute menace. Him and Zach Sealer, who is such an underrated defensive tackle, by the way. And personally, I thought he should have been a Pro Bowler. He got 12 sacks. He's an absolute beast. But such a leader off the field. He set the tone in the locker room as well. And ultimately, I think the Dolphins need him for that. He needs to nourish the rookies, because I think the Dolphins will probably either sign a DT in free agency or they will draft one. And Calais Campbell, he's the leader of the defense. If not, you saw in the videos, probably one of the best things that I look for after a game. You see the reaction, the video from the locker room when they break down in the huddle, and you see the head coach coming in. Calais Campbell was always the one setting the tone after. He's
Yeah.
saying, "Great win," or "This is what we need to This is what we need to work for. Let's watch film. Let's come in at 6 a.m. on Monday morning and let's have Tuesday off." He was setting the tone every single day. And like I said, he probably won't come back for less than 5 million, but I would definitely pay 5 million for another season of Calais Campbell, hands down.
Yeah, definitely. I hope he retires playing for a team and he doesn't retire a free agent. I think even if he's got a year or two left in him, let him play those 2 years and then let him retire on his own terms. Yeah, he's a legend. He's a tank, and like as you mentioned with the backstage videos, it was exactly the same when he was at the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, where we had Arthur Smith as a coach. It wasn't a great time for us Falcons fans, to be honest. But Calais Campbell, he was the leader back then. So yeah, it's good that we both had that as our honorable mention. We both had that on our minds. So he's a legend. He's a tank.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking down the list here. Not a lot of running backs at the moment. We've got our Aaron Jones, number 40.
Aaron
We've
Jones.
Najee Harris, 49 as well. One I'd like to talk to about it, another really good running back, I think, is very, very underrated. He's been he's been very unfortunate with injuries since he was drafted by the Ravens. Number 63, J.K. Dobbins. He's only 26 years old, and it says here he was the Comeback Player of the Year finalist. He had a brilliant season for the Chargers. And he's, like he says here, he's 2 full seasons now removed from an Achilles tear. So hopefully he should be even fresher at the beginning of the next season. He's a big body back. He's a bruiser, really good for third down. I thought he was really, really effective for the Chargers last season. So I'd definitely, maybe not as a running back one, maybe as a 2 or the 3. Definitely, the Dolphins definitely need a big back like him. But Najee Harris could also fit that bill as well.
Yeah. I'm looking at a little bit down the list now. If there's any team out there that's looking for a decent backup quarterback,
Yeah.
I don't know why I've got a soft spot for this quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. I've got a bit of a. I see the face Sam. If you want a QB3 or a QB or just a QB2, I've got a little soft spot for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know why. Every time I play Madden, I sign him as like a backup quarterback for whoever team I play for. I don't know why. He played one game last season against the Seahawks. He was playing for the Rams. So any team's looking for just someone just to have maybe go for Jimmy Garoppolo.
He is, to be fair, he is a solid backup, and I can't believe he's only 33. He seems like he's been around for ages.
Yeah.
Since he was Brady's quarterback in New England, and then obviously he was traded to the 49ers, and since then he's gone all around the NFL. If I was looking for a backup quarterback, I would definitely bring him into camp and make him compete with, like you said, a QB3 or a QB4.
But I hope he finds a team. I've got a soft spot for him.
Yeah.
I hope he. Justin Simmons is number 74. A Falcon. He only signed a 1-year contract with the Falcons.
Yeah.
He's been a Pro Bowler. He not this season, I'm afraid. Unfortunately for. He's a veteran in his position. I liked him. He did really well for us.
Love that player. Yeah.
I think any team would be looking to pick him.
Definitely. He's a two-time Pro Bowler with when he was with the Broncos, and I was quite surprised that nobody picked him up until when did he play a full season for the Falcons, or did he sign mid-season with you?
No, he signed with the Falcons before preseason. So
that's a pretty nice safety tandem you had there with Simmons and Jesse Bates.
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, very, very good pick for us. He did okay considering the season that the Falcons ended up having, but he did really well.
Guto, if I was looking for a veteran cornerback, look no further. Number 75, Stephon Gilmore. I know he's 34. former Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's still got the physical ability.
Yeah.
I think I would still see him as a starter, honestly.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, decent. Yeah, he's been decent. Was it the Vikings that was his previous team, I believe?
Yeah, he was with the Vikings last year. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, he had the Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's got a couple more seasons left in him, definitely. He probably signed for a team that's probably need help in that position, that needs strengthening in that position. I think he'd be a decent option for a year or two, definitely.
Just a few others before we finish. We were talking about Calais Campbell being a leader and being a difference in the locker room and on the defense. Look no further to perfect example of that, along with Calais Campbell, number 79, Bobby Wagner. What a player!
Bobby Wagner, yeah, another tank, definitely. He's a
former member of the Legion of Boom at the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, he's a leader. He's a locker room leader. He had quite a few options last season before ending up at the Commanders. So, but yeah, he's gonna. I think quite a few teams will be looking at him as well for that leadership role in the locker room.
I'm scrolling down this list. We've got some decent players like left here, and we're talking, 80s now. Keenan Allen, he could be a handy wide receiver. I reckon a wide receiver 2 or 3. Levante David, I know Levante David is 35, linebacker, former Bucks linebacker. Wouldn't surprise if he'd go back there actually. And then you've got Dan. Talking about quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, Gito. Would you rather have Jimmy G or Daniel Jones?
I'm sticking with Jimmy G.
Okay, fair enough.
I was thinking, yeah. I went past Daniel Jones, so Daniel Jones. He was drafted. I believe he was number 1 in his draft class. I think I need to make sure that I'm correct with that one.
Can't remember if he was. He was definitely a first round pick.
Yeah. But yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins, number 92.
Number 92.
Wild.
Yeah. Do you think he'll stay with the Chiefs? Obviously, they signed him on a short-term contract in this. So.
Yeah, well, they did the same with Marquise Brown, and I think he was number 40. We didn't mention him. So I doubt that the Chiefs will sign 2. I think they'll definitely sign 1. Honestly, the Chiefs off-season is all going to depend. It was going to depend on 2 things. A, if Kelsey was going to come back, now that he is. The other big thing, the other domino to fall, is what's going to happen with Rashee Rice. With his injury, obviously, he had a torn Achilles. Oh, no, sorry, he had a torn ACL after week 3 or week 4 of the season. But I don't know if he's going to be suspended as well for what happened during last season. He was caught speeding and he left the scene of a crime as well, which just wasn't good. But anyway, such a talented wide receiver. I'm not sure which one I'd rather, if I'm honest with you, if I'd take DeAndre Hopkins or Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown is younger. DeAndre Hopkins is 33. His production wasn't great during the off season, not the off season, the playoff. Sorry. So that might be a kind of a red flag. And he had a big drop in the Super Bowl, which
Yeah, it was obviously a big positive to see DeAndre Hopkins. He's been wanting to be in the Super Bowl for quite a while, so he finally made the Super Bowl, but obviously he didn't win it. We all know what happened during that Super Bowl. So, but like you said, I agree in terms of that the Chiefs will only sign 1 of the 2 if they do decide to go for one of them.
Yeah,
and I don't back to DeAndre Hopkins. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody does go for him. It might be that he'll be a mid-season signing for a few teams, but I don't think he's on. No offense to him, I don't think he's on top of anyone's radar at the moment.
No. I think he'll probably wait, like you said, until mid-season. He'll try and find find a spot on a roster of a team that's looking like they go into the playoffs or potentially making a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you on that one. I've gone down to the bottom of the list. We've got a running back, Nick Chubb.
Yes, Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Such a talented player when before a devastating knee injury 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anyone who's shopping for a running back, I think Chubb will be. He's only 29 years of age, so although he came back from a devastating knee injury, he probably still in his prime. He'll work hard. He's got good speed. He's got good plays in him. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Nick Chubb ends up. I think anybody who needs a running back, they'll be looking at Nick Chubb.
Slim pickings in running back wise in I'd say in this free agency. You've Aaron Jones. You've got, like I said, Nick Chubb. Who else have you got? Aaron Jones. Najee Harris. Sorry, who was the other ones? None of them excite me, if I'm honest with you. The other option, because last year obviously you had the big guns. You had Saquon, you had Josh Jacobs, and you had Derrick Henry moving teams. So they kind of reset the market. So I guess this season you were always going to get a weaker pool per se. No offense to them. You have, by the way, you probably heard of him, have got an extremely talented running back that might go in the top 10 in the draft, Alshon Jeffrey.
Okay, yeah. I've heard. I think just going back to the running back position quickly. I think obviously with this season, and especially, but you don't see a lot of top running backs going into free agency every season. So I think a running back position is a position that teams will want to draft instead of shopping in free agency. But obviously, if you're looking for like a secondary, obviously you've got Najee Harris, you've got Nick Chubb. But I think teams who are desperate for a running back, they will be probably drafting a young running back if they can. That would always be their first option before they go to decided that they have to go free agency. So depending where they are on the table as well. What was the name you gave me again? I apologize. What was that?
Alshon Jeffrey. He's a running back from Boise State. Some people have compared him to the best prospect running back coming out of the draft since either Saquon Barkley, who went in the top 5, or Bijan Robinson, of course. He's just got a bit of everything. He's got the speed, he's got the size, but more than that, he's got the vision as well to chop between tackles. I've watched his tape. Guitar, please, before you go to bed this evening, watch his tape. He is. Some people say that he might go in the top 5. He'll definitely first rounder, 100%. If he drops to number 13, I would pound the table for the Dolphins to take him, 100%.
Yeah, I'm actually rooting for you. I hope he does make it to number 13 for the Miami Dolphins. But obviously, you've got teams like Dallas Cowboys up at 12 to 11. San Francisco and Dallas above trading before Miami is a bit of a shocker, actually. But then you've got New Orleans. Obviously, you've got Jacksonville Jaguars, New England. They'll be looking for new weapons as well. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. We drafted Bijan Robinson at number 7.
Right.
So, number 7 this year, New York Jets. I think it depends what they do with their quarterback situation. So,
yeah. Did you know what? Dallas will definitely be looking for a running back. Actually, that's blown the air out of my balloon, 100% there, because I thought that we had a chance, but yeah, it turns out I think Dallas are definitely gonna target a running back, because they've got their quarterback, they've got Dak, they've got CeeDee Lamb. Defensively, potentially they could go cornerback, I suppose. We don't know, by the way, what's happened. I've heard rumours about Micah Parsons potentially being on the trading block as well, which is wild thought, if I'm honest with you. I don't know why the Cowboys would would be unwilling to pay him. However, so we've reached 101, by the way. Just before we end, I just want to throw you a quick question. Actually, I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about Kirk Cousins.
Okay. Bring it on.
Yeah. So clearly, Penix is going to be the number one from
Yes.
from the beginning of the season. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think I'd agree with that as well. I think they've got trust in Michael Penix Jr. To be the QB1.
So the Falcons have a dilemma, therefore. Kirk Cousins is clearly not going to settle to be a backup anywhere. Plus, he'd be the most expensive backup quarterback by far in the league. However, I looked up. Unfortunately, there isn't an easy way out for the Falcons. You only gain 2.5 million in cap space if you trade him, and you don't gain anything by releasing him as well.
Yeah, so we're stuck with him. It's we've dug ourselves. We've made our own bed with that. I am gutted that it didn't work out for Kirk Cousins. It looked like it did at the beginning of the season. Even that first game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he threw a couple of interceptions there. But we beat the Eagles, we beat Dallas Cowboys, we got close against the Chiefs. So the first 9 games we were 6-3. So we had great momentum, and it just crashed. We lost 4 in a row. So, and then before it was too late, they decided to go with Penix Jr., which worked wonders for him. He showed that he can be QB1. He will be our QB1 next season, definitely. So, yeah, I think if Kirk Cousins doesn't decide to retire on his own, then, that money is just going to be going down the drain, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people questioned the decision to give him that much money. But to be fair, Kirk Cousins has been the ultimate professional by finding himself the best deal. He doesn't sign long-term contracts. He usually signs like 2 or 3 year deals, but he makes sure that he maxes out cash-wise. And he's done that wherever he's gone. He did that in when he went to Minnesota. He did it early on in Washington, and he did the same with the Falcons as well. So I think he's going to be earning something like 30 million as a backup this year. And the other thing as well is obviously a lot of people would question, why would you give him that money if you knew that you liked Penix in the draft? Or has Penix maybe caught you off guard and he was way beyond your expectation talent-wise, that you ultimately you had to play him?
Well, when the Falcons decided to draft Penix Jr. last season, I think that was the biggest shock of the whole draft that week. Why did they decide to go for Penix Jr. when they spent 140 million contract on Kirk Cousins, right? That was the biggest story of last season in the draft. So yeah, it is interesting. But I've read some interviews from Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers. One of them being Matt Ryan, legend of the Atlanta Falcons, and he mentioned. I was reading his interview during the draft, and he reckoned that Michael Penix was the best quarterback in the whole draft class. That's his words.
Yeah.
He had a lot of praise coming into the draft. Although it wasn't a terrible pick, it was just a strange pick in terms of the situation with Kirk Cousins. So
I personally think ultimately it's going to work out. I think it's going to be the right decision, and it's ultimately going to work out for the Falcons. I don't question that at all. I think they're just going to, unfortunately, for the next 2 years, they're just going to have to eat that cap space and that dead money for a while. But ultimately, in the long run, you're going to reap the rewards, because I would definitely put Penix second as the second best quarterback behind Jaden Daniels at the moment. But that, like you said, obviously we haven't seen enough of him, have we, to be fair?
No. I've seen him play live. I was at the game against the Seattle Seahawks. He came on halfway through the fourth quarter. it was hammering for us, I'm afraid. So I saw him play. It was actually his first game as well. First time actually coming from the bench, and he's done he's done a couple of more appearances off the bench here and there, but him being the starter with the weapons that we've got, it looks like that Raheem Morris does want to keep Kyle Pitts as well.
Okay.
So Drake London, my favourite, Bijan Robinson. We've got plenty of weapons.
Stacked offensively, you are, to be fair.
And there's a lot of noise that they've been doing some interviews during the combine, the managers and the defensive coordinators, and they've only been interviewing defensive players. So we'll be building and drafting defensive players this season. So, being a Falcons fan is always a circle. You have hope, you play well, play terribly, you don't make the playoffs. Next season, you have hope. So it's just a vicious cycle. Probably the same for the Dolphins as well.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. It's been a long 25 years since the last time we won a playoff game. So I know how you feel. But to be honest with you, especially if you do bolster the defense, either in free agency or in the draft, like you said, I would put my money on you winning the NFC South next year.
Yeah,
I think Carolina are going to be another year out of potentially competing. I think the Saints will potentially rebuild, and Buccaneers. I think they're a stubborn team more than anything. But ultimately, I'd still put my money on the Falcons winning the division next year.
Yeah, well, cross fingers that. Well, we say that every year. So, but we've got the talent for it. That's the problem. Obviously, we had Arthur Blank as our coach for 3 years before Raheem Morris came in. I was not a fan of Arthur Smith at all.
No,
I am a fan of Raheem Morris. It's just a different vibe with him. Different energy to the locker room as well. So, I'm looking forward to the draft. I'm looking forward to not creating a lot of controversy this time around. So, it's going to be an interesting off season for the Falcons as well. I don't think there'll be too much going on around free agency in terms of big players coming in. So, we'll definitely be looking at the draft.
Yeah, and you were talking about Raheem Morris. Well, he learned under one of the best coaches in the league. He was with Sean McVay of the Rams for a while, so he's coming from a winning organization. So there we are. Gosh, it's over an hour. Guto, this is our longest pod by far. This is fantastic. So there we are. We've covered a lot there. We've covered recent news. The up and coming free agency period, like I said, will begin officially at the 11th of March, so in around 10 days' time. Well, can't wait for that. That's, like I said, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the season. And then we've looked at some of the free agents and a little talk about the draft as well, and obviously a recap with the Falcons at the end. So there we are. Guto, thanks very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Really enjoyed the talk. Hope that you've enjoyed the talk as well. Any questions? Any comments on the free agents or the upcoming draft in April? Please let us know. We are NFL Cymru on Instagram and NFL Cymru Pod rather on X. So we've moved. We were trying something out. We're trying. So we're now on a different platform, which means we are ultimately going to be able to record longer videos, which is great for us and great for you. And we'll obviously be able to clip some of them as well. So there'll be more content coming very, very shortly. And like I said, we'll definitely delve into more news. We'll have some more breaking news over the weekend, no doubt, and we'll see you all next week. Please share, like you said, comment. We are the NFL Cymru Podcast. Guto, diolch yn fawr iawn. See you very shortly.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, and happy St. David's Day tomorrow, everyone.
Happy St. David's Day, yes.